Hey, what's going on, everyone? We're back. Hope everyone had a great holidays. Today we're going to announce our giveaway winners. We're also going to do a World Junior recap, do some mid-season grades for each player, talk about our MVPs of the season so far. Stay tuned. We got it all here for you right here, right now on Between the Dots podcast. Let's go. Let's do a live show.
That would be sweet.
Alrighty, we're back. New year, 2023. How was your holidays, Kijo?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, we took a little bit more of an extended break than we thought we would, but it was good to catch up with friends and family again and have a nice relaxing holiday, but I'm excited to get back into it. So I think off the start here, we're going to jump right into our Christmas giveaway.
Yeah, so we gave a little bit of time for everybody to fill this out over the break. We appreciate all your feedback on it. There were some really cool suggestions in there that we're going to look forward to implementing in the future for our episodes. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Quickly, before we do the draw here for our winners, I just wanted to show again the mugs that we have here. First one's the black between the dots logo, pretty nice. Rumor has it these actually make your coffee taste better, so you're gonna have to test that out for us. And the second one is the Between the Dots cup with the colorful logo. Both very nice cups, and I'm sure our lucky winners will be happy if their name gets pulled.
So what we have here is our entries that took the time to fill out that form and give us some feedback as well. And like we mentioned earlier, we appreciate that. And now we're going to figure out who our winners are. So let's find out who our first winner is. Here we go. Owen Hinch, he's a lucky dog when it comes to these things. Hinch, you got to enter yourself into more competitions in the future because you do really well at these here.
Wow. Congratulations, Owen Hinch, once again.
Very good, Hinch. So we will take Hinch's name off. Hinch is our first winner. All right, and our second winner. So we're going to have 4 winners here. As well. I don't know if we mentioned that, but there's going to be, it was mentioned in our previous episodes, we're going to do 4 winners, 4 mugs to give away, 2 colors, 2 blacks. So Hinch, he won himself a mug there. Let's figure out who our second winner is.
Cole McPherson. Wow. Another great winner here. Still played hockey with Cole growing up, and luckily I still get to play against him, and now he's going to be the proud owner of a Between the Dots mug.
Nice. See skate circles around you, or?
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
All right, we'll take Cole's name out of there as well. And our third winner of Between the Dots mug. Let's find out who we got.
Zach Wambolt, nice. Third winner.
Congratulations, Zach.
Get your mug. Congratulations.
All right, Zach's name's off there. And last one, final winner of the Between the Dots Christmas giveaway is Curtis Folger. Curtis Folger. Guy's been a supporter of the podcast since day one. So Curtis will be reaching out to you.
Congrats to all our winners.
All right, so thank you to everyone who entered. Congratulations to those of you who won. If you didn't win, just want to still say thank you for your support. And yeah, I'm glad that everybody enjoyed the podcast in the first half of the year.
We love to see too there's lots of ideas from people of what we could do on the podcast and more things to talk about. So a lot of those were really funny, and we'll definitely be using some of those. So keep tuning in, and you'll be able to hear when we use some of those thoughts that you guys had.
For sure. There may have also been a spelling mistake in Cole McPherson's name. He was one of the winners, so apologize for that, Cole. But yeah, congratulations to everyone who won.
Before we hop into the Leafs and Sens talk, we're just going to do a little recap of the World Juniors and the show that Connor Bedard put on. Absolutely insane. The World Juniors never disappoint. They're always, it's favorite time of the year, Boxing Day it starts, and you just get to watch Canada go for gold. And luckily enough, this year they ended up winning. And what was your overall thoughts of the tournament, Felix?
Biggest takeaway for me was just how good the competition was this year. Like, even teams like Slovakia gave Canada a run for their money. Like, each team was pretty solid. The Czechs were good, right? Like, so just like the overall level of talent at the tournament, I think is what was the most entertaining part about it for me. And then you get your crazy high-end talent as well, like Connor Bedard, who was just incredible to watch. Like, he was just such a dynamic player. So it's obviously, I think he's just solidified himself as being first overall for the draft coming up, if you ask me. But it was a really, really good tournament overall.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I like what you said about the competition. A lot of these times in the past years, we've seen, like, you have your Russia, Sweden, USA, Canada, and hopefully, like, most of the time those are the top four. But seeing the other competitions, the other countries, can see that hockey's growing in those countries and evolving and making better competition. And yeah, that was awesome to see. I mean, starting with the Slovakia-Canada game in the quarterfinals, taking the Canadians all the way to overtime, and then Bedard, obviously, with that insane goal to send Canada to the semis to play USA. I mean, Slovakia was so close, and you could see the looks on their faces after the game. They were obviously heartbroken seeing they were that close, and then eventually knowing that Canada goes on to win the tournament. That's got to be tough. But no, it's really good for the game of hockey that all those teams are growing and
And speaking of Russia too, like, they weren't even at the tournament, but there's another team that would have just, like, added to the level of talent that was there. Like, I know Matvei Michkov's supposed to go, projected to go top 5, and I think if he didn't have that KHL contract that he currently has, he might even be a consensus number 2 overall. But just because he might end up kind of being like Kaprizov, where he's got to wait those 3 years and then he comes over, that's why teams are maybe shying away from picking him as well. But like, just the level of talent. Leo Carlsson too from Sweden was really impressive, and just overall was a really good tournament.
It's crazy just getting back to Bedard quickly. Like, the talent in that tournament is insane, and then just seeing somebody that is that much better than all the best players is insane. Like, it's honestly, watching it is like comparing McDavid to the rest of the league. Like, you can just tell he's so much better. So I love that a lot of people were saying at the start, well, they're not playing the teams that are very good. Bedard's getting all these points because these teams aren't very good, and he proved a lot of people wrong and showed up when the moments mattered, or when the moments were the biggest. So that was good to see, and he really showed that he's an unbelievably good hockey player.
Yeah, so on the topic of Bedard still, and one of the suggestions as well from the feedback that we guys had you do for our giveaway, one of the suggestions was a play of the week. And I think this might have been a play of the whole Christmas holidays here, was when Bedard scores a beautiful OT winner. I mean, the whole sequence is crazy. He just takes a shot, gets it back. That got me out of my seat.
Yeah, for those of you just listening, we just played the Bedard overtime goal, and it's like 3-on-3. It's crazy because the 3-on-3, it's all about possession, and you can see it's a lot different than it was at the start with the NHL. Like, they get the puck and go back, but in this, like, Bedard just decides, I'm going to walk through all 3 of them and walk the goalie and put it in. Like, so talented.
Yeah, so just a really great tournament overall, and obviously happy with the end result for Canada, the fact that they won gold, which was huge. Just to, like, highlight a couple of the Sens prospects that were there. The Sens had one prospect on Team Canada. It was Zach Ostapchuk, and he finished with 3 points in 7 games played, so not quite as many points as Connor Bedard, but great tournament for him. And then they also had Tyler Boucher, who's playing for the U.S. He finished with 4 points in 6 games. They had Oscar Pettersson from Sweden, who is a very surprising prospect as well for the Sens at this World Juniors. He finished with 4 points in 7 games. And then lastly, they had Thomas Hamera from the Czech Republic. And he finished with 1 assist in 7 games. So a little quick around the table for the guys who are on the Sens there. And it was, good tournament.
Yeah, it's funny to see those, when you talk about those prospects. If you look back at the tournaments a few years ago, when we think like Tavares and all those guys were playing, you look at the roster and there's always a few guys that you say like, oh, who's this guy? Like as if this guy was on Team Canada. So it's funny to know, like, I wonder how many of those guys are going to, obviously Bedard is the standout, but how many of those guys are going to go to have long NHL careers and which ones just aren't gonna make it. And you can see how small the margin is for making it all the way or not quite getting there. But I'm excited to see out of all those guys, and not just on Canada and the whole tournament, who moves on to the NHL and who can be successful in that league.
Yeah. One of the guys that actually impressed me quite a bit from Canada too was Olin Zellweger, the defenseman. And I thought he had a great tournament, and he was drafted 2nd round, 34th overall last year by Anaheim. So you kind of see the pipeline about what's coming up too. So it's a great tournament though, every year.
It was funny too, because as soon as the tournament's done, you got the CHL, most of the trade deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as all the guys get back, they all get moved. And I was lucky enough, being in the Barrie area, seeing that Brant Clark got sent back from the LA Kings he was with the Ontario Reign, the farm team, but he got sent back to Barrie for the rest of the year. So I'll be able to watch him in person, and I'm excited for that, as well, seeing Shane Wright getting traded to the Windsor Spitfires. So a lot of those teams making a playoff push, and Bedard, oddly enough, didn't get moved. I was just reading something about that and saw that he plays with his best buddy on his line, and he just wants to kind of live out the last part of that year, just kind of still being a kid, because as soon as he gets drafted, his whole life's going to change. So
respect to him for that, for trying to stick with the Regina there, trying to win. So that's it for our World Junior recap. Now we're going to talk about getting back to Leafs and Sens hockey. And specifically, we're right around the midway point of the season, 40 games in now for both our teams. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you our season MVP. We're going to give you 2 surprises. One of them is going to be a good surprise, and another one's going to be a bad surprise. And then lastly, we're going to give you our expectations for the rest of the season.
Alrighty, I'll start us off. The first one for MVP, this is tough, because I'm not taking the leading scorer. I'm not taking even the guy that's 2nd in points. I'm taking the guy that's 3rd. But in my mind, I mean, Mitch Marner had that insanely long point streak. Obviously, he's having another great year. Austin Matthews, another great year. But what I've seen from William Nylander this year has been nothing like we've seen in the years past. I feel like he's scoring big goals. He's getting goals to get them back in it. He's not getting the goals that are just, he's making it 7-1, 6-1. He's scoring big goals, and I think the team's really rallying around him, knowing that if you get your good guys, your big guys going, like Matthews, Marner, Willie, I think they could have a successful regular season and then hopefully into the playoffs. But like I said, he's not 1 or 2 in points. He's number 3, but I like William Nylander as the Toronto Maple Leafs first half MVP.
Yeah, I was going to also say Nylander for mine too, so I can't argue too much against it. But he's not far behind in points either. Like he's got 45 points, and the 2 leaders, Marner's got 49 and Matthews has got 47. So I think that speaks volume to how good of a season Nylander has actually been having. He's leading the team in goals. He's having a great year. So definitely a career year for Nylander. And, it's funny because I remember when he signed that contract, and even before this season, he would take a lot of heat for, is he worth the money? Is he worth the money? Well, he's worth the money, all right. And you know what? Out of all the guys on the Leafs, he seems to be the guy who brings it to playoffs every time year round. So, you know, he doesn't disappear come playoff times after having an 100-point season like Marner did last year. So, you know, it's he's having a great year. So I can't really argue that Nylander would be the MVP there. He is having a stellar year so far, leading the team in goals and not far behind in points.
Yeah, so we'll see what he can bring in the second half. Who do you have as the Sens first half MVP?
Sens first half MVP is Tim Stützle. So he's leading the team right now in points per game. He'd be leading the team in points if he had played in all the games, but he did miss about a 1.5, 2 week stretch there with a shoulder injury. He's got 39 points in 36 games played, and he drives play 5-on-5. Like, it's not like he's getting his points on the power play. He makes stuff happen when it's 5-on-5, and he also converts on the power play. Coach puts him out on penalty kill as well. He averages more ice time than Brady Tkachuk, more ice time than Batherson, more ice time than Giroux, more than DeBrincat. So he's really grown into be a really good forward for the Senators. And yeah, he's just electric to watch. And those games that we didn't have him in the lineup, we could not get anything going 5-on-5. So, you know, definitely he's our first half MVP. He's also leading the Sens in goals right now too. So, you know, he's just a super important player. And the fact that he's only 20 years old is just a sign that, you know, of that he's going to continue to grow and continue to get better, which is awesome for as a Sens fan to see that. And he, you know, the Sens actually have, we said this at the very start of the year, but the Sens actually have the second youngest average age in the entire league. So, you know, you want to talk about their struggles they've had this year, that could easily just be, you know, one reason the fact that they've struggled is just because of how young they are. Like, they really are still a young team when you look at it all together. Like, their leaders on the team, Brady Tkachuk is 23 years old, Stützle 20 years old, even DeBrincat's not, you know what I mean? He's in his prime right now. I think he's 25 or 26. So it's still, they're still a very young team. So they got a lot of room that they still need to grow in. But Tim Stützle, first half MVP.
It's tough to be agreeing with each other so much, but he was also my first half MVP for the Sens. Tim Stützle, like we were talking about earlier, the World Juniors. I remember watching him and thinking he's playing on a German team that maybe wasn't so good, but obviously he stood out, and we were wondering, like, is that going to transfer to the NHL level? And he's going to be a pretty high pick. Ultimately ends up being with the Sens now, and yeah, he has had a great first half. He's on my fantasy team, I will add, and I think that every night I go on, it's consistency. You look for consistency in your fantasy team too, and every night I go on there and I see Stützle, goal and assist, or a goal and assist, or whatever, and
A couple shots, couple hits.
yeah, exactly. He's across the board helping the fantasy team out. Yeah. So
maybe not in the plus minus category, but
that's okay. We took plus minus out this year.
That's good. That's good. And if we could backtrack just for a bit as well, back to the Leafs MVP. I think we just brushed off Marner a little too much. I think he deserves some more credit than what we've given him in the first half. Yeah, he had that massive point streak and all, but he does it night in, night out. It wasn't just that 20 whatever game point streak. Like, that guy is, dare I say, the best player on the Leafs. More than Matthews.
And he has been good, and that's the thing about when these guys are so good and they're always so consistent, you tend to overlook them, like we mentioned. But he's just a guy that you don't even really think about when he gets his points, because he always does. And Nylander only a few points behind him. I really do think that, especially leading in goals with Nylander, that's why I took him over Marner. That's no knock on Marner. Obviously, he's unbelievably good, and he's a huge part of the reason why the Leafs have the pretty good record that they do. So they definitely complement each other, even though they're not on the same line, but they make the other team worry about two separate lines. That's with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. So that trio, and you can even add Tavares in there too. I mean, they're all great players, but I really like the first half from Willie Nylander.
What's one big surprise for you for the Leafs in the first half of the year? Biggest surprise?
So this was a tough one for me. I think because this guy hasn't played that many games, but having Connor Timmins come into the lineup has been huge for the Leafs. We know how they've had their injury troubles, and it was good to get a guy like that at that time. And a lot of people thought, okay, they're gonna have to do some work from him, or do some work with him, but hopefully he'll be something, and he might be able to get in the lineup when guys get hurt and stuff. But I feel like every night he plays, he's got 12 games played now, 10 points, got his first NHL goal the other night. He's just been consistent in the games he has been in, and nobody really saw it coming at, obviously, the start of the year. He wasn't on the team yet because he was traded for, but when he got traded, it was, okay, this isn't really a big acquisition. I mean, he might step in the odd game, but no, I've really liked the game from Connor Timmins this year, and being from St. Catharines too, that always helps. And I'd like to see him get in the lineup every night. I know Leafs have Brody's hurt now, but they've got a bunch of good defensemen. But I think down the stretch here, you're going to need to see Gio take a few games off, and Riley's just coming back, so you don't know if they're going to put him into every game just because they obviously want him for the playoffs and don't want to overdo it. But I would love to see Connor Timmins to continually get into the lineup and hopefully keep putting up points and keep helping that D-core out. And yeah, he's been a great surprise for me.
Connor Timmins. So we love a good St. Catharines boy too, because that's both where Kijo and I went to university. So I would actually argue, though, that Nylander has been, yes, we gave him the MVP, but I think I would also give him the biggest surprise, just because of the fact that Timmins has only played 12 games so far this year. I think, Timmins has been a great surprise for sure. Biggest surprise, I would say, for the Leafs would be Nylander, just because of how, he has just been driving play, being difference maker night in, night out. So, and that's something that, we weren't really accustomed to before this year. We knew what he could do. We saw his potential at times, but now seeing it on a nightly basis is just I would give him the biggest surprise of the year award for the Leafs.
Yeah, I just think that, to me, when, like you mentioned, we could see his potential. You could always see his potential, how he was the goals he would score, he was playing good a lot of the time. He just didn't have that extra step to get over the edge like maybe the Matthews and a Marner did. But I think that's why it doesn't surprise me, just because it was always this guy could be so good. He's going to be so good. He's going to have a breakout year. He's going to have a breakout year. And eventually it just happened. I think that's why it wasn't maybe a huge surprise to me, because I think a lot of people could have potentially seen that coming. But I can see why you see it's a surprise, but
really shows how the importance of how management needs to be patient with their players. Because there was a lot of talk for a while, we should ship Nylander maybe, for a defenseman and a lesser expensive forward, maybe and you trade him for Ekholm and somebody else from Nashville, one of their forwards that they got, the depth guys. So there was talk of that happening for a while. So it just really goes to show that with those guys who are still young, you really do got to just buy in and be patient with them. So good to see him doing it now on a nightly basis. For the Sens, biggest surprise of the year so far is the leadership of Claude Giroux. So 36 points in 40 games played, and he has fit in so well with Ottawa. He can play on any line, And for a guy who people were saying, oh, he's getting older, this guy can play. And, maybe that I'm sure that was always the case when he was in Philly, and Flyers fans will tell you that as well. They'll be the first to say, like, yeah, we told you this guy's a good player. Like, he's just come into Ottawa and has just fit right in and has really been a leader and a good veteran presence for guys like Brady Tkachuk and guys like Stützle as well. So I think he has come in and has fit in better than we could ever have hoped, really, from a Sens perspective. And I think that's my biggest surprise for the Sens so far this year.
So I like the positive route you took there, but
that's right.
My biggest surprise for the Sens may not be the most positive one, and I'm just going to start by saying over the last few weeks, the Leafs goaltending has not been good. But my surprise for the Sens is I honestly thought there would be a better duo there with Forsberg and Talbot. When the Sens got Cam Talbot, I was disappointed as a Leafs fan, because that was after the Leafs got Matt Murray, and I thought, like, the Leafs could have got Cam Talbot for less money, and instead they go and get Matt Murray, and I was a little confused by that deal. But seeing now that Cam Talbot, he unfortunately for the Sens has a losing record. Yeah, I just think I expected more out of the duo, because we thought the Sens might have more points than they do currently in the standings, and might be a little higher. Obviously, we know the division they're in is pretty good, but I think that if they did have goaltending, that they don't have to be outstanding, but even just a little better than average, I think that could have potentially helped the Sens get a few more points and maybe be a little bit closer to a playoff spot. Like you mentioned, Claude Giroux, I mean, that's another great surprise there. The leadership there is good, a guy that's been in the league for many years. But I think from a negative surprise would be the goaltending from the Sens. I expected more out of those two goalies.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say that the most negative surprise this year from the Sens would be just like the play of their back end this year. Their defense is just, and I don't know if it's systems stemming from coaching, or if it's just we don't have the guys, or if it's a combination of both that. But we are inconsistent, and we are not good in our own end. I mean, like, starting with Nikita Zaitsev, I guess I wouldn't really call that a surprise, him being bad himself. But, I mean, other guys that have been not good, like Erik Brannstrom has been not good this year. He is touted as this offensive defenseman. He's a smaller build, so he should be. And the guy's got 3 points in 35 games this year, all assists. So, like, these are guys we were hoping to take a step forward maybe, and they haven't. So I think Brannstrom might be my biggest bad surprise this year for the Sens. I mean, like, everyone else is kind of doing, like Hamanich, I think, has been solid. Mind you, he shouldn't be playing in a top 4 role. He needs to be your 5-6. He's been solid, though, but not as a top 4. And Sanderson, really solid as well. He's logging second most minutes on the team right now, night in, night out. Zub as well, super solid. So we have pieces of what we need on the back end there, but just like the play of that third pairing or whoever it is, night in, like it's always something every night. And then there's the nights where we have solid D, but then our goalies will let in a few bad goals, like you kind of mentioned. Like, so with the goalies, like Cam Talbot, or as you say, Tam Talbot, he is got a .906 save percentage, so that's average, right? And like 290 goals against, so like nothing special. And it's like, I know these guys were never really nothing special, so I'm not too surprised by that. I'm just happy that it's above 900 save percentage for those guys. Also, another big surprise for the Sens. I know we've already said a good surprise for them, but another one is how good their power play is. My goodness, they are, I think, third in the league right now in terms of power play percentage and their success rate. So, like, that to me just shows you the offense. Like, we should be in more games. We should be winning more games if we could just play 5-on-5. But what do you have for your worst surprise for the Leafs?
Bad surprise. I mean, it's tough when you get injuries involved, but I really think that I've said this for a couple of years now is I've expected Nick Robertson to take the next step, to be helping them out. They've been looking for that top line left winger at the trade deadline last year, and they'll probably be looking for it this year, whether that's playing on the second line or the first line, vice versa. But I really was hoping that Robertson would take that next step, and obviously you can see his brother is one of the top players in the NHL right now. Nick Robertson's had injury issues, like I mentioned, but he hasn't really caught any breaks. I mean, it's tough a lot of the time too. You had the coach putting him on whether he's on the fourth line or the third line, or he'll give him one game on the second line and he won't produce that one game. And I feel like he wasn't really given the biggest opportunity to succeed, but it's tough now because he's hurt. And I really thought the Leafs would get more out of Nick Robertson, and it's tough because with all their contracts, they're looking for value. So he could have been a valuable piece to help out whatever line he could help out. Doesn't even have to be the first or the second. I was hoping he would find a spot in the lineup every day and help them win. And unfortunately, in the first half, that hasn't happened for him.
That's a good pick, Nick Robertson, because he was electric in that overtime winner. And I thought he was gonna just gel right in and maybe hit like 40 points this year, but no, he is not even like getting in the lineup at all. So that's a good pick. One other surprise that I might have said for like a bad surprise for the Leafs this year is just not the play of Morgan Rielly, but just he has no goals still to this point of the year. And I know he missed some time, but like for a guy who plays on the power play and plays the minutes that he does and is an offensive defenseman, I'm just surprised that he doesn't have a goal. He's got 19 assists in 26 games, and he's a -1. And he has 8 points, 8 of those 19 assists on the power play. So I'm just surprised that he has is it his contract year right now?
Morgan Rielly signed an 8-year, $60 million deal.
Just under $8 million.
The cap hits 7.5.
Yeah. So just surprised, with his play so far this year. Not obviously where he wants to be. 0 goals, 19 assists, and only 26 games played. So
yeah, we've seen the Leafs use the 5 forwards on the power play, and just recently, the last couple games, they've put Rielly back onto it. So I don't know if they're trying. It was actually just in the last game I noticed, but because he's coming back from injury and they're going to have to get all their looks figured out before the playoffs to see who's going to work best. But he's had success there in the past on the power play. And I think obviously playing with all those stars in the power play, sometimes he gets overlooked, but yeah, I do. That's a good pick as well. I mean, to not have a goal yet and be playing on a power play where you could even say that the other team's paying more attention to the other guys. So you'd think he might get a few more looks, but hopefully he has a better second half.
Yeah.
So we're going to quickly do a week out for both the Sens and the Leafs. Normally we do the week in, week out at the start of the episode, but had a lot of time off, obviously, so we're just going to get into the week out. So the Leafs have a big week ahead. On Thursday, January 12th, they take on the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are maybe not as high up, kind of like the Sens as we thought they would be at this point of the year, but I know the Sens are hoping that the Red Wings don't win many more games to hopefully give them a chance to maybe squeak into the playoffs. So I know the Sens are probably hoping the Leafs can take that one. And then on Saturday night, they have a huge matchup with Boston. Boston has been on an absolute tear the whole year. They still have not lost in regulation at home, which is insane. I mean, we're mid-January, still haven't lost in regulation at home. I think that's just crazy. And then on Tuesday, January 17th, another division rival, they have the Florida Panthers. Florida has had an off year, but having guys like Makachuk, and we know they're a solid team, even though the standings may not say that right now. It's a couple big tests coming up for the Leafs, so hopefully they can get a win against Boston for sure, and get a couple more against the two other teams. And I think if the Leafs are going to win a round in the playoffs and ultimately potentially get to Boston, they're going to have to beat them in the regular season as well. So hopefully they can get a few wins this week.
Yep. Help us out this week. Beat Florida and Detroit for us, so maybe we can hop them in the standings. So Sens this week, they play January 12th at 9 p.m. against the Arizona Coyotes. That one's in Arizona, so winnable hockey game at this point in the season. Sens need to be winning these games, and they dropped the last two against Nashville and Seattle, where they didn't look the greatest, to be honest. Really inconsistent, which is, again, could fall back on a variety of things. So we just need to start putting our best foot forward every night. And starts tomorrow with the Coyotes. Need 2 points there. And then we play the Avalanche on Saturday, January 14th at 7 p.m. in Colorado. And again, it's going to be a tough game, but Colorado's been struggling this year. They're not in a playoff spot right now, so Ottawa needs to, lay it all out on the line here for this upcoming road trip that they have. We can't be leaving points on the table. We got to, I think, get at least 4 out of 6 of these points. And then our last game is on Monday, January 16th against the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis. That one starts at 8 p.m. So, yeah, again, just to reiterate, 4 out of 6 points, I think, is the goal here. And, like I've said before, you got to win 2 out of every 3 games, and you keep that pace going, and you'll finish with around 95, 96 points, and hopefully put ourselves in a position to make the playoffs with that there. It's, but, can't be dropping 2 straight games with just embarrassing efforts. I mean, they were both at home, too. So it's just like, we can't be doing that, and it's just like, I honestly think it's a matter of coaching. I said it earlier this year.
Yeah, you may have mentioned that a couple times.
Until they make changes to their coach, like, we're not going to see, like, this team hits their potential right now with what we've got. Like, we need to change it up, bring in a new system, new voice in the locker room, and hopefully that will help. Now, it's funny because Nashville, they did an in-game interview with their assistant coach this past week when Ottawa was playing them on Monday, and their assistant coach said that Ottawa is a very sporadic team, and they get most of their chances, like, essentially just like from their creativity. And to me, that just, there's like a little undertone there where they're saying they're not very good system-wise. They're just a very, like, sporadic team, and that's how they create their plays. And, their power play keeps them in games and stuff. So it's not the I think
coaching. That's a lot for being a young team, though, too, because a lot of young teams are like that.
Right. But, if we're trying to make those steps, it's got to fall on somebody. So whether it's the players, the fact that we don't have the defense that we need to, or the depth maybe on forward that we need to, whatever it is, like, we got to figure it out. We got a couple more months to figure it out and hopefully make a push for playoffs, and we'll see where we're at come trade deadline, whether we're selling or buying. But yeah, we'll see. So expectations for the rest of the year, I'll let you go first. In terms of the Leafs, what you're kind of expecting from them for the rest of the regular season, and then maybe leading into playoffs as well.
So right now they're sitting in a pretty good spot in terms of where they are in the standings and going into the playoffs. So I hope they just keep the pace they're going at now, and it's looking like if the playoffs started today, they would, surprise, have another first round matchup with Tampa. I think you just want to shoot for home ice. I mean, you want to finish ahead of Tampa, and Tampa's been on a bit of a roll lately too. And I don't think you're going to catch Boston because of the unbelievably good record they've put up so far. So I think just keep going how you've been the first half of the year. And I mean, barring some crazy injuries, it should go like that for the Leafs. And leading into the playoffs, I mean, we've all been waiting to see them win that big first round. I think it'll look like the Stanley Cup was won in Toronto if they get past the first round. So I just hope that a lot of the guys, there's been several injuries, like we mentioned Morgan Riley. That's a guy we need to get going if we want to have a good finish to the regular season and hopefully a good start to the playoffs. And I think that we'll talk trade deadline expectations in one of the future episodes coming up. But I do think that they could potentially the Leafs could add any position, and it wouldn't surprise me right now, whether it's a top winger, a defenseman, or even there's been talk about a goalie. But I just think that if they keep on the pace they're at right now, they'll have a successful second half of the year, just like they did the first, and lead into the playoffs on a high note.
Mm-hmm. I think the expectation for the Leafs this year, come playoff time, needs to be we need to win a round. I mean, regardless of, like last year, Tampa was back-to-back Cup champions, so they were playing extremely motivated to try to win that series, to keep it at 3 in a row, and obviously they made it all the way to the Cup finals. This year, as well, the expectation for the Leafs, with most likely going to have home ice again in the playoffs, I think the expectation is you win at least one round. Get yourself out of that first round, and that's anything short of that, I think, for them, with the talent that they have on their roster, is a little bit of a disappointment. Now, like I said, Tampa is such like a good playoff team, so like that's just the nature of what the division is like right now. No matter who you're going to get in that spot, you're going to be facing a good team. I mean, you could make that argument against honestly any of the 8 teams that are in the playoff spot right now. So like even if you win the division and you get Washington in the first round as a wild card, like it doesn't matter. That Washington's a great playoff team as well. So, the expectation this year is there should be no excuses and they should win a playoff round because they're statistically better than Tampa Bay, and you're hoping that maybe Tampa Bay's on a bit of a decline and this is the year that you can overtake them come playoff time as well too, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a lot of people have mentioned too, teams like Tampa, I mean, they were in their prime. Obviously they still are, but winning those cups with Kucherov and Stamkos and those guys as they get older. But
well, they've lost guys even since last year. Like they lost Palat.
Exactly. And the Leafs guys they're slowly getting up there too. I mean, you don't expect them to win in the first or second year that they've been in the league, but they've been in the league for quite some time now. So it's really time for them to show, not just in the regular season. They got to do it in the playoffs. So hopefully that's to come this year.
Yep. Expectations for the Sens are a little more cloudy, I think, right now. Just like
it's a good way to put it. Cloudy.
Yeah. Like my personal expectations for them is still to push for playoffs, but I think they've been tempered a little bit, judging just from the first half of the year, because I
sense a Sens fan losing some hope there that they're going to make the playoffs.
I guess that's what I mean by tempered. Is there's a little bit of hope that's been lost, that's for sure, and it just boils down to like consistency. I haven't seen Ottawa be able to string like a consistent stretch of like 10 games. It's like they finally had a good 10-game stretch, and then they go and they drop 2 awful games to the Kraken and Nashville, and then it's like, well, all our hard work the past 10 games is now we're back to being 500. And it's like you gotta be consistent, and at least in these games, like if we could have gotten like a point out of, they're both home games, even if we could take one of them to overtime or even take both of them to overtime, and like gotta find a way to get these points. And I just think like expectations for the rest of the year for the Sens, because of how inconsistent they've been and how they've struggled at 5-on-5 and defensively, I think those are some glaring issues. If they can figure that out a little bit, or even just improve to be average in those areas, and then have their power play continue to carry them and have that dynamic, top six that gets it done. Maybe Josh Norris coming back will help with that. It should be in about a month he's back, so who knows. I'm hoping that that's the case and that we can still make a push for playoffs, because this team's good enough that they should be beating, or at least being in closer games against Nashville and the Kraken than what they were. So it's we'll see what happens the rest of the year. And like you mentioned, we'll do our expectations for trade deadline coming up once we know a little more closer to what to expect. By then, this is a huge month coming up. We have 2 games against the Penguins, which are going to be 2 huge games. We got games against the Islanders, the Leafs, so some teams we're competing with there, and also some winnable hockey games against the Coyotes, and just big Western road trips. So we'll see where they end up. But expectations overall, still expectations are to try and make playoffs, but temper them slightly. Maybe we finish a few points out, but I think for me, the expectation needs to be that it's coming down to the final 5 games of the year. If we're not in it with 5 games left this year, what were we doing? What were we promising all off season? That we'd be playing meaningful games in April. So for me, we need to be right neck and neck come those final 5 games for a playoff spot. And if we don't put ourselves in that position over the next month before trade deadline, then forget it and sell off and do it right next year, bring in some more defense and a different coach and go from there. But we'll see what happens.
So that's a wrap on episode 13, Between the Dots, off the extended break. Thanks again for everyone's patience. I know there were people reaching out asking when the next episode's coming out, so we appreciate that. And we big shout out to all our winners. Big couple weeks coming up for the Sens as well as the Leafs, and looking forward to lots of good hockey still to come.
Can't say it much better than that. So thanks again, everyone, for listening, and thanks for all your support as well with the podcast. We really enjoy putting these out for you. So just thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Go Sens, go.
Go Leafs, go, baby.